Let's start with a hard pill most people keep tucked under the tongue. Kindness without edge turns you into easy prey. You were raised on the storyline: be nice, be humble, play fair, and the universe will pat you on the head and hand you your reward. Keep doing the right thing. Keep your heart untarnished. And one day, surely, someone will notice. But you already know how this movie actually ends. You tried to be the good one and got passed over. You kept quiet to keep the peace and got stepped on. You clung to principles while the cunning smiled their way to the top. The world doesn't hand out trophies for purity. It pays out for awareness. That's why Niccolo Machiavelli still hits a nerve. He didn't write The Prince to lecture you into sainthood. He wrote a field manual for souls walking among wolves, how to keep your core intact without getting devoured. His point was brutal and simple. Morality without strategy is naivety dressed like virtue, and naive goodness, unguarded and unstructured, is a leash other people happily clip to your neck. Hear this clearly. Your error isn't being good. Your error is believing goodness alone compels respect. In reality, goodness without boundaries reads like an open bar sign to opportunists. Look at the people you admire, the ones who rise. Did innocence get them there? Or did they understand human nature enough to shift gears, soft when softness served, sharp when sharpness was required? A warm hand visible, a sharper hand ready behind the back. Machiavelli did not instruct cruelty. He warned against blindness. He cautioned you not to walk into a game without learning the rules, because players who don't know the rules are the easiest pawns to sacrifice. Every time you swallow a slight to avoid conflict, every time you give without asking for terms, every time you tolerate what grinds your dignity down, you broadcast one message: I am safe to use. You can stop broadcasting that today. This isn't a call to burn your kindness. It's an invitation to harden it with intelligence. The problem isn't your heart, it's your lack of armor. You move as if everyone plays by your code, when most people play by outcome. Polished predators, friendly faces, predatory instincts. They specialize in spotting the generous, the trusting, the souls who can't imagine using others, so they never spot when they're being used. You didn't become a target because you're weak. You became a target because you're transparent. Predictability is comfortable for everyone but you. Machiavelli's read on human nature was pessimistic, yes, but practical. When cornered, people choose advantage over ethics. If you don't accept this, you'll keep losing to people with half your goodness and twice your awareness. So refine your kindness into strategy. Keep your principles, but stop laying them on a silver platter for anyone to carve. Study people. Trust your radar. Read motives behind smiles. Train your eye to notice what's missing, not just what's shown. And grasp this distinction that most good guys never learn. Being loved is not the same as being respected. You probably chose being loved. Approval is sweet. It's also a trap. Ask yourself, did it bring you admiration? Did it give your words gravity? Did it make others hesitate before crossing you? Or did it teach people they can take what you give and vanish when the balance is due? Kindness without presence, strength and boundaries doesn't create loyalty. It breeds entitlement. People rarely respect what is always available, easily accessed, and never says no. When they don't respect you, they won't consult you, protect you, or even hear you. Not because they're monsters, because you never taught them how to treat you. If your good heart keeps getting broken, if your quiet keeps turning into disrespect, if your giving never cycles back, it's because you confused kindness with a strategy. Kindness becomes strategy only when you give it a spine awareness, discernment, and power. Machiavelli didn't say, stop being good. He said, in spirit, stop being blind. Let's go deeper. Many of us weren't chasing love. We were starving for approval. Survival mode taught you to please, to shrink your edges, to be the agreeable one with tidy opinions and a calm, predictable presence. You called that kindness. In practice, it made you invisible. The world rarely bows to the lovable. It bows to the unreadable. When being liked is your compass, you soften in the very places that need steel. You compromise instead of holding ground. You hand out second chances when silence would have sent the message. Machiavelli's most controversial line still clarifies the terrain. It is better to be feared than loved, if you cannot be both. That was never a license for cruelty. It was an observation about leverage. People align themselves with what they cannot easily predict, lead with the need to be liked, and you telegraph your buttons, where to press, how far to push, when you'll fold. Worst of all, you convince people your kindness is endless, that they can cross you and still receive your warmth. Approval becomes a prison, built from compliments, locked with self-doubt. Respect, on the other hand, is earned currency. It costs boundaries. It requires a backbone. It demands the willingness to exit any room that charges your silence as the price of admission. Scan your life and ask, where did you overgive, overstay, overtolerate? Was that kindness or fear? If you don't face that line now, you'll keep learning the same lesson on repeat. Your heart can stay soft, your frame cannot. From childhood, they fed you a lie, that goodness alone would be noticed, that loyalty, patience, and honesty would somehow earn you the crown. But no one told you the world isn't watching for saints, and if it is, it's not applauding your virtue, it's calculating your usefulness. Because the world, as Machiavelli saw it, doesn't move according to virtue, it moves according to leverage. Power isn't about intention, it's about control, and control is built through perception. Think about it. How many times have you done the right thing only to watch someone more cunning, less deserving rise ahead of you? You told yourself that eventually the truth would win, that goodness would speak for itself. But if you've lived long enough, you know that's not how it goes. The world doesn't reward moral purity. It rewards strategic purity, the ability to weaponize goodness, to blend decency with discernment. Machiavelli understood this perfectly. He warned that it's not enough to be good. You must appear powerful while being good. It is not necessary to have all the virtues, he wrote, but it is necessary to appear to have them. Because appearance shapes perception, and perception is power. You can be wise, capable, and moral, but if you appear uncertain, you'll be treated that way. Let's be real. The confident fool often wins over the quiet genius. The manipulator thrives because he seems composed. The naive man loses because he waits for recognition. But the world doesn't notice what doesn't demand its attention. That's why Machiavelli emphasized not just survival, but performance. Power is theater. Respect is choreography. And the ones who master their stage presence rule the room long before they open their mouths. You can have brilliance locked inside you, but if your posture says hesitant, if your voice trembles when it should command, if your energy feels apologetic instead of intentional, the world writes its own script about you. Power is not just inner strength, it's how well you project it. Because people don't respond to who you are, they respond to what they perceive you to be. If you appear passive, they'll dismiss you. If you appear uncertain, they'll talk over you. If you appear soft, they'll test your limits. You could have the sharpest mind in the room, but it won't matter if your presence doesn't communicate it. The world is hypnotized by confidence, real or fake. It follows the image of authority, even if that authority is hollow. That's why you see the loudest people command attention while quiet thinkers fade into the background. It's not fair, but it's human. People are emotional, reactive, and drawn to charisma, not virtue. So stop hoping your goodness will speak for you. Make your silence heavy. Make your words deliberate. Make your presence something people adjust their tone for. Because in truth, it's not morality that runs the world. It's mastery. Now ask yourself something uncomfortable. Have you ever seen someone less talented surpass you simply because they looked the part? They weren't smarter or better. They just understood presentation. Machiavelli wasn't glorifying deception. He was teaching strategy. Appearances rule perception, and perception shapes reality. That's not being fake. That's being aware. You don't need to pretend, but you do need to present. Power isn't only held, it's projected. Respect isn't just earned, it's signaled. Stop waiting for people to discover your worth. Show it, deliberately and consistently. Let your body language, your tone, your eye contact communicate what your resume can't. Because those who control the narrative of themselves control the response of the world. And there's more. Power is often found in silence. The strongest people in any room usually say the least. Not because they lack opinions, but because they understand that every word is ammunition that can be turned against them. What you withhold builds mystery, and mystery breeds control. Machiavelli wrote, "A prince must know how to conceal his intentions, not because lies are noble, but because transparency in the wrong context is suicide." Think of how many times you've over-explained, desperate to be understood, only to feel dismissed or exposed. Or how often you trusted someone too quickly, gave them your thoughts, your plans, your emotions, and they used it against you later. That wasn't honesty. That was unguarded self-disclosure. In the hands of wolves, that's self-sabotage. Strategic silence isn't deception. It's defense. It's how you hold your edge in a world obsessed with oversharing. When people can't predict you, they hesitate. When they hesitate, you gain control. The less they know, the more they respect the unknown. Every word you say should have weight. Every sentence should feel like it was chosen, not spilled. Because when you speak with intention, people listen and they remember. And the man who talks endlessly is forgettable. The man who pauses before he speaks, who leaves space for silence to echo, that man carries gravity. Strategic silence is not shyness. It's power disguised as restraint. It keeps you unreadable, and unreadable men are untouchable. So stop explaining. Stop filling the air with noise. Let others wonder what's going on behind your calm face. Leave gaps in the story. Make them guess. Because when no one can fully read you, no one can control you. That's the kind of power the world respects. The power of presence, patience, and control. Machiavelli didn't admire cruelty. He admired those who couldn't be easily played. And if you want to stop being used, it starts with mastering your visibility, your words, and your silence. Because power doesn't belong to the loud, it belongs to the deliberate. If people can predict you, they can control you. It's that simple. Machiavelli knew it. History proves it, and you've felt it. Predictable men are expendable. Unreadable men are dangerous. When people know exactly how you'll react, when you'll forgive, when you'll argue, when you'll cave, they can script your entire life for you. And you'll play your role like clockwork, wondering why you always end up being manipulated. Think about your patterns, the way you always rush to fix things when conflict appears, the way you always explain yourself when misunderstood, the way you always soften your tone when someone gets upset. You call it being kind, being reasonable, being the bigger person. But to a manipulator, it's a manual. It tells them exactly which buttons to push and what tone to use to steer you. Predictability is a luxury only the powerful can afford. Everyone else, everyone who's still earning respect, still building leverage, needs to be unpredictable enough to keep people guessing. Because when people can't predict you, they hesitate. And hesitation gives you space. It gives you control. Machiavelli wasn't telling you to be chaotic. He was telling you to be unreadable. To be the man whose smile doesn't give away his thoughts. The one who can vanish instead of reacting. The one who can be silent when others expect a fight. That's not manipulation, that's composure used strategically. You don't owe the world your reactions. You don't owe explanations to anyone who hasn't earned your truth. Every time you overreact, you give away information, emotional coordinates that others can use against you later. But when you stay centered, when you hold your ground without showing your cards, you become an unknown variable, and people fear what they can't calculate. Unpredictability is not confusion. It's control. It's the art of moving just enough that no one ever quite knows where you stand. Yet everyone senses your presence. When they can't define you, they can't confine you. So break your patterns. Say no when they expect yes. Stay calm when they expect rage. Walk away when they expect argument. Surprise the world not with noise, but with restraint. Because every moment of controlled unpredictability builds a psychological distance. And distance is respect. Here's something most people never realize. Respect isn't built by showing up all the time. It's built when your absence creates weight. Machiavelli wrote that a prince should never become too familiar with his people, not because superiority matters, but because familiarity dissolves mystery. And without mystery, there is no reverence. When you're always available, always replying, always showing up to every conversation, every event, every problem, you teach people to take you for granted. Constant access kills value. Familiarity breeds contempt, not connection. People only appreciate what they fear to lose. You can see it everywhere, in relationships, in workplaces, in friendships. The one who chases, who explains, who over-delivers is the one forgotten first. Not because they lacked value, but because they never gave value time to breathe. They never allowed their absence to speak. Strategic distance is not cruelty, it's respect management. When you step back on purpose, when you stop being the first to text, the first to offer, the first to solve, you let silence do what words never can. People start to wonder. They feel the loss of your energy. They notice how the air feels different without you in it. That's when value forms. The great ones in history, leaders, thinkers, warriors, they weren't everywhere. They were selective. They made their presence rare, intentional. And because of that, their words carried thunder. When they finally spoke, the world listened. That's the principle Machiavelli called strategic distance. Not isolation, elevation. Because when you manage your exposure, you manage perception. And perception, again, is power. If you're afraid to pull back because you think you'll be forgotten, ask yourself this. If people only remember you when you're constantly giving, were you ever respected at all? The truth is, people don't remember consistency. They remember impact. And impact requires scarcity. Powerful presence isn't about being seen, it's about being missed. Now let's move to something Machiavelli believed was the foundation of all power, emotional control. You've been told your whole life to express yourself, to let it out, to speak your truth. But every reaction you show is a window into your weaknesses, and anyone seeking leverage will watch closely. When you lose your temper, you lose your throne. The moment you react out of anger or insecurity, you give control to the person who provoked you. That's why Machiavelli said a ruler must act from calculation, not passion. The man who cannot master his emotions can never master outcomes. Think back to the last time someone got under your skin. You snapped, maybe shouted, maybe stormed off. Who had the power in that moment? You or them? It wasn't you. It was the one who controlled your reaction. They pressed a button, and you danced. That's emotional slavery. Emotional control doesn't mean you feel nothing. It means you don't perform your feelings for others. You hold your ground internally, while everyone else loses theirs. Because calm in chaos looks like leadership, and leadership attracts respect, in business, in conflict, in life. The man who can remain still while others are shaking becomes the anchor everyone gravitates toward. Machiavelli understood that. He wasn't telling you to bury your humanity. He was teaching you to weaponize it, to use calm as armor, to bleed privately, not publicly. When you're unreactive, people get confused. They can't read you. They can't provoke you. They lose the ability to manipulate your emotions, and that frustrates them, which means they start respecting you. Because respect is often just fear wrapped in admiration. Start noticing the rise of your pulse, the heat behind your words, the sting of your pride when someone disrespects you. That's your test. If they can trigger that response, they own that part of you. But if you stay calm, if you smile instead of snapping, if you hold your energy instead of wasting it, you take their power away. Mastering your emotion doesn't make you cold. It makes you unshakable. It gives you the ability to see through manipulation, to make decisions from clarity, not ego. It's the quiet kind of strength that bends the room without raising a hand. Remember this: power doesn't belong to the loudest voice. It belongs to the calmest mind, the one who doesn't flinch, the one who can stand still while others drown in their own storms. That's the mind that leads. That's the presence that commands. And that's the version of you Machiavelli was writing for. Not the man who tries to be liked, but the man who chooses to be untouchable. Power doesn't always belong to the first mover. It belongs to the man who moves last and best. In a world addicted to speed, everyone's rushing, reacting, posting, talking, scrambling to prove they're doing something. But Machiavelli understood what few ever do. The real strategist waits. He studies. He observes. He lets others reveal themselves. Because he knows that the first strike isn't the most important, the precise one is. Think of a hunter. He doesn't fire at the first sound in the woods. He waits until the target is in perfect range. One shot, one decision, one move that changes everything. That's the essence of strategic patience, the kind that gives you clarity and leverage while others burn out chasing noise. Average men act from urgency. Powerful men act from timing. The world worships hustle, but timing quietly bends outcomes. When you can hold your fire while others flinch, when you can wait while others rush, you start to control not just your actions, but the rhythm of the game itself. Machiavelli said, "Fortune favors those who can adapt," and adaptation, at its core, is the art of knowing when. You don't need to speak first. You don't need to defend yourself instantly. You don't need to act just to look busy. You need to wait until the chaos settles, until the noise fades, until the move becomes obvious. And then, when you act decisively. No hesitation, no explanation, just precision. Because power isn't about constant motion, it's about decisive impact. One right move at the right time can do more than 100 frantic ones made out of fear. The man who can sit in silence, who can watch the storm without joining it, becomes terrifying to everyone around him. Because his calm isn't weakness, it's calculation. That's the paradox of power. You win by holding, not by rushing. You dominate not by volume, but by timing. You influence not through constant effort, but through well-placed moments that others never see coming. So ask yourself, will you keep reacting like everyone else, chasing every small fire that burns your ego? Or will you wait, watch, and learn to strike when it truly matters? Because power doesn't belong to the frantic. It belongs to the disciplined, the ones who understand that silence, distance, and timing are weapons. And now, with everything Machiavelli has taught you about image, restraint, unpredictability, and timing, the truth becomes undeniable. Kindness alone was never enough. Being liked never earned you power. Being available only made you easier to use. You weren't weak, you were unarmed. No one ever told you that silence could be strength, that distance could create desire, that unpredictability could command respect, that image could be leverage, that patience could be dominance. But now you know. And once you see the full game board, there's no going back to being a pawn. From this moment forward, you move differently because you no longer just exist in the game. You understand it. Now that you see the entire map, the illusion is shattered. You understand why kindness alone never protected you, why approval never brought respect, and why the world kept rewarding those who knew how to play, not just how to feel. You weren't weak. You were untrained. No one taught you that silence could be a weapon, that distance could build desire, that unpredictability could command obedience, or that image could become armor. But now you know. The world doesn't reward goodness. It rewards strategy dressed in goodness. It doesn't pay respect to those who are open. It respects those who are deliberate. And from this moment on, that must become your new standard. Stop being easy to understand. Stop being easy to reach. Stop being easy to control. Every time you explain yourself too much, every time you give someone constant access to your attention, every time you try to prove your intentions, you lower your value. Your openness becomes a map others use to find your vulnerabilities. Machiavelli understood this centuries ago. He knew that power lives in the unseen. A prince, he wrote, must learn to conceal his intentions, not out of deceit, but survival. Because when people know too much about you, your fears, your goals, your limits, they can predict you. And what's predictable can always be controlled. So build mystery into your presence. Speak less than you know. Reveal less than you feel. Show the world only what strengthens your position, never what weakens it. Let your silence make people curious. Let your absence make people uneasy. When you stop feeding everyone your energy, they start chasing it. Most people mistake exposure for authenticity. They share everything, their thoughts, their emotions, their pain, and call it being real. But authenticity without boundaries is self-destruction. When you bleed in public, the world doesn't heal you, it studies you. Power is not built by exposure, it's built by restraint. The less people know, the more they project. And projection gives you control over their imagination. They fill in the blanks with their own fears, their own fantasies, and that uncertainty becomes your leverage. Machiavelli's wisdom wasn't about deception. It was about shaping perception before perception shapes you. So guard your time, guard your energy, guard your emotional weather. Make your presence rare, but unmistakable. When you walk into a room, let people feel that you chose to be there, that your attention is currency, and not everyone can afford it. This is not arrogance. It's discipline. You are teaching the world what your worth sounds like in silence. And beneath all of this, the image, the mystery, the distance, lies the deepest principle of all, self-mastery. Because none of it matters if you're still ruled by impulse, still chasing validation, still reacting instead of choosing. You can't master the game if you can't master your mind. Emotional control isn't about suppression, it's about sovereignty. It means choosing how, when, and if you respond. It means staying calm when provoked, measured when insulted, and focused when tempted. The man who owns his emotions owns his environment. He doesn't lose his edge to anger. He doesn't lose his dignity to pride. He doesn't lose his direction to approval. That's what Machiavelli admired, the man who acts, not the man who reacts. The one who can face disrespect with silence instead of rage. The one who can delay gratification while others demand recognition. The one who moves with purpose while everyone else moves with panic. That's power. Quiet, deliberate, terrifying in its calm. So remember this, you don't need to prove your goodness. You need to protect it. You don't need to show your heart to everyone. You need to guard it like a fortress. You don't need to be liked. You need to be respected. Let others keep playing the game of visibility. Loud, desperate, predictable. You play the game of leverage. Subtle, patient, unseen. Let them chase applause. You chase control. Let them demand attention. You create gravity. Because when you no longer seek validation, the world starts seeking you. This is the transformation Machiavelli was pointing toward. Not cruelty, but clarity. Not coldness, but control. The strength to be kind and still be feared. To be calm and still be powerful. To be silent and still be heard. So look at your life now and ask, which part of you dies today? The people pleaser, the over-explainer, the man who mistook approval for strength? Whatever it is, let it end. Let it. Because from this moment on, you are no longer trying to be understood. You are training to be unreadable, measured, mysterious, masterful. The kind of man who no longer hopes for respect because he commands it. And that is when your kindness finally becomes power. When you reach this level of awareness, life stops feeling like survival and starts feeling like strategy. You no longer stumble through the world hoping for fairness, you navigate it with precision. Every silence, every boundary, every choice becomes a calculated move towards sovereignty. Because true power isn't about dominating others. It's about mastering yourself so completely that nothing external can shake you. And when that happens, when your calm becomes your weapon and your kindness your disguise, you don't just survive the game, you own the board.